Okay, so ready to dive deep. Today we're tackling breaking the habit of being yourself. It's like, how do our thoughts and feelings actually, shape our reality?
It's a really practical book, blending like brain science with how to actually apply it in your life. It's not just airy-fairy stuff.
Right, not just like put on a happy face and everything's fine. It's a real manual, for change.
And it all comes down to this like huge idea.
Mm.
Your thoughts today are literally building the foundation for your future.
So what we think today impacts our tomorrow. Kind of makes you want to be mindful of what's going on in your head, right?
Exactly. And the book's premise is that we can actually like rewire our mental and emotional patterns.
It's almost like becoming the creator of your own life.
Yes, it's how the book frames it, yeah. It's about taking all this complicated brain science and making it, practical.
Yeah.
So you can create a life that feels good, healthy, happy, even.
Abundant, even. Like that word always makes me a bit hesitant, but I get it.
Yeah, abundant in the sense of feeling fulfilled, having what you need, not just material stuff.
Right, right. And one of the things that really stuck with me was you don't have to wait for some big crisis to make a change.
It's so common, right? People wait for something bad to happen before they're like, okay, I need to change.
But this deep dive, it's about saying, hey, you have the power to change right now. So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, we'll start by unpacking this whole concept of the self. Like, what does that even mean? Then we'll get into how our brains play into all this and how meditation can be a powerful tool for,
Rewiring, basically.
yeah, rewiring. And as we go, we'll pull out the key ideas from the book, like this whole idea of a quantum reality and how our minds, our focused attention, can actually influence the world around us. It's called the observer effect.
It's wild, right? And then there's this idea of overcoming your environment, like not just being a puppet to your surroundings.
By shifting your internal state, you can change how you experience and react to those external things.
So it's an inside-out kind of thing.
Exactly. We'll also get into the mind-body connection and how emotions we've memorized can become our default way of being.
It's like we're running on autopilot sometimes, huh?
Yeah, and we'll explore how to break free from that. Then we'll talk about overcoming time, like how to stop dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
And really be present.
Exactly. And we'll look at this shift from, a survival mindset to one of creation.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. Chapter 1, the quantum you. It starts with this idea that our inner world affects our outer world. Like what we think and feel impacts what happens around us.
It talks about the observer effect in quantum physics, which basically says that where you focus your attention, you direct energy, and that can influence matter.
It's like where you shine your flashlight. That's what you see, right?
Yeah, and it's happening on this subatomic level. It's mind-boggling to think that energy responds to our attention and can become matter.
So if we can direct our attention, we can actually influence what manifests in our lives.
That's what the book is suggesting, yeah. And it brings in this concept of infinite potential realities existing as waves of possibility.
And it's when we observe one of those possibilities that it collapses from a wave into a specific reality, a particle.
Exactly. It's like the universe is waiting for us to choose, And it gives some interesting examples, like the study on prayer and infection rates in a hospital.
Oh, right. I remember reading about that one. It's kind of controversial, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The results weren't statistically significant in terms of mortality, but the patients who were prayed for, they tended to recover from fevers faster, had shorter hospital stays.
So something was happening there.
Potentially, yeah. And the book points out there were a lot of infections in that particular hospital at the time, so.
It makes you wonder if there's more to it than we can measure.
Exactly. Then there's this DNA experiment by Glenn Rain at the HeartMath Research Center. This one really gets into the idea of intention and emotion working together.
Can you walk us through that one?
Sure. So they had these healers holding vials of DNA, right? The first group, they just focused on feeling good emotions like love and appreciation.
Just positive vibes, basically.
Yeah, but when they analyzed the DNA afterwards, there were no significant changes. So just feeling good on its own wasn't enough.
Okay, so what happened next?
The second group, they did the same thing, feeling those good emotions, but they also held a specific intention, like a clear thought about either winding or unwinding the DNA strands.
So they had a specific goal in mind.
Yeah, and with that combination, they saw some big changes in the DNA shape, like up to 25% change in some cases.
Wow, that's a pretty big impact.
It is.
Yeah.
And then the third group, they were told to hold the intention, but not to generate any positive emotions, just pure thought.
So intention alone.
Right. And guess what? No changes in the DNA.
So you need both, right? The intention, like the map, and the emotion, like the fuel.
That's the takeaway. Intention needs that energy of emotion to really make something happen.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And the book uses this analogy of thoughts being the electrical charge and feelings being the magnetic charge.
Yeah, it's a helpful way to visualize it. Our thoughts send out an electrical signal into the quantum field, and our feelings act like a magnet, drawing back things that resonate with that frequency.
So our thoughts and feelings create this electromagnetic signature, basically our state of being, which then influences our world.
That's the idea, yeah. It makes you think twice about what kind of signal you're sending out, right?
Definitely. And the book talks about how quantum outcomes should often be surprising.
That's because if you're truly tapping into this vast field of possibilities, the results might be beyond what you could imagine, you know?
Like it might not look exactly how you pictured it, but it's still aligned with your intention.
Yeah, and those unexpected manifestations are like feedback, confirmation that you're on the right track.
Okay, this next part about gratitude was a big shift for me. It talks about feeling gratitude ahead of the desired outcome. Not just being grateful for what you already have, but feeling grateful for what you want as if you already have it.
Yeah, that's a powerful distinction. It's about aligning yourself emotionally with that potential reality even before it shows up in your physical experience.
That's like energetically claiming it.
Exactly. And the book ties this into this concept of a universal intelligence, which it describes as pure love.
So it's about aligning with that loving intelligence. And
And when your will, your mind, and your love for life resonate with that, you become a co-creator.
it's almost like partnering with the universe.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, yeah.
And the book also addresses that common phrase, why does this always happen to me? Like feeling like a victim of circumstances.
It says that's us clinging to that old Newtonian model of cause and effect. But with this quantum understanding, we start to see that we can actually cause effects through our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
So it's about taking responsibility, basically.
Yeah, and recognizing our power to create change. So the goal becomes to move into a state of consciousness that allows us to connect with this universal intelligence and send a clear signal of what we want to experience.
And it even encourages us to ask for quantum feedback, like asking for little signs and synchronicities related to our desires.
It's about being open to receiving those confirmations, those little nudges from the universe.
Okay, so Chapter 1 lays the groundwork for this whole quantum understanding. And it ends with this really hopeful message that by changing our minds, breaking free from those old habits of thinking and feeling, we open ourselves up to all sorts of new possibilities.
And that's what makes all things possible, right? When you're not limited by your past, your body, your environment, even time itself. It's pretty exciting when you think about it.
It is. It is. Okay, moving on to Chapter 2. Overcoming your environment. This one really gets into how our surroundings can hold us back.
It starts by reminding us that our subjective minds have a real impact on the objective world, that consciousness actually shapes the physical world.
But then it talks about how our environment, those external circumstances, can keep us stuck in those old patterns.
Yeah, it brings in Hebb's law. Nerve cells that fire together wire together. Basically, what we repeatedly think and do becomes hardwired in our brains.
So like if we're constantly reacting to the same things in our environment, those neural connections get stronger.
Exactly. It becomes easier to fall back into those same thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, even if they're not serving us.
It's like creating these mental grooves, right?
Yeah, and it can lead to feeling like you're out of control, stuck in a loop, like in Groundhog Day.
You wake up and it's the same day, the same problems over and over.
But the key is that we created that loop, so we have the power to change it by thinking and feeling differently.
It's about taking back control. And the chapter gives some inspiring examples of people who did just that, like Gandhi.
He held this unwavering belief in a future of freedom for India, even when everything around him seemed to contradict that.
He didn't just hope for it, he lived as if it was already happening, right?
Yeah. Exactly. His actions were aligned with his beliefs, even though he couldn't see, hear, or feel that reality in his immediate environment.
So it's about this deep internal conviction, even when your surroundings don't match up yet.
Yeah, and his behavior matched his intentions, his actions mirrored his thoughts. Mind and body were in harmony.
That's powerful. And it reminds me of that study about piano players and mental rehearsal.
Oh, yeah, that one's fascinating. It showed that people who mentally practiced playing piano actually developed almost the same number of brain circuits as those who physically
So
practiced.
our brains can change just by us thinking differently.
That's what the study suggests, yeah. And when we focus intensely, the brain doesn't really distinguish between what we're vividly imagining and what we're actually experiencing.
It's like our thoughts can become our reality even without the physical action taking place.
Exactly. So by vividly imagining a new reality, you can actually start to lay down the neural pathways for it.
So mental rehearsal allows the brain to exist in the future even before the event happens.
That's the idea, yeah. It's like pre-paving the road to your desired outcome. Pretty cool, huh?
Definitely. Okay, let's move on to chapter 3, Overcoming Your Body. This one gets into the nitty-gritty of the mind-to-body connection.
It starts by explaining how every thought we have triggers a cascade of biochemical reactions in the brain.
So like every thought releases chemicals.
Exactly.
Mm.
These chemicals then travel throughout the body and cause a physical reaction.
And the body then sends a signal back to the brain, confirming that it's feeling what you're thinking.
It's this constant back and forth communication creating a loop.
And this loop creates our overall state of being. It's how we end up with those predictable reactions, those familiar thoughts and feelings.
It's like we're programmed to respond in certain ways.
Right. And this chapter asks a really interesting question. Who's in control, the mind or the body?
Yeah, because sometimes it feels like our bodies are running the show, right?
Definitely. It talks about how reliving past events can train the body to remember the emotional state, even better than our conscious minds remember the event itself.
And when the body remembers better than the mind, that's a habit.
So it's like our bodies have become addicted to those familiar feelings, even if they're negative.
It's like a chemical addiction, yeah. And it points out that by our mid-30s, a lot of our identity, our behaviors, beliefs, emotions is programmed at a subconscious level.
So we're basically running on autopilot a lot of the time.
And it uses the example of feeling guilty to illustrate what happens when we try to break free from one of these memorized emotional states.
What happens? Like there's resistance.
Yeah, big time. The brain-body system wants to maintain that familiar state, even if it's negative.
So even if we consciously decide, I'm not going to feel guilty about this, our bodies might still be clinging to that feeling.
That's the idea, and it manifests as those inner voices, those sub-vocalizations trying to pull you back in.
It's like, hey, you're supposed to be feeling guilty right now.
Exactly. And the moment you listen to those thoughts, you fall back into the pattern.
It's like breaking any addiction. You have those cravings, and it's a battle between your conscious desire to change and your body's deeply ingrained habits.
That's a great comparison. And that's why just thinking positive thoughts isn't always enough. You have to get your body on board, too.
That whole system changed, right?
Exactly. And the book defines emotions and feelings as chemicals that are produced in response to our thoughts and experiences.
So like our thoughts and experiences create a chemical reaction in our bodies.
Yeah, and those chemicals then create feelings. And when we pay attention to the external trigger of those internal changes, that creates a memory.
It's like our bodies are recording those experiences and encoding them chemically.
And the book says that most people are living in the past because our bodies are addicted to those familiar chemical records of past emotions.
So we're constantly re-experiencing those old feelings.
Even if we consciously want something different, our bodies might be holding us back.
It's like we're stuck in a rut. And this is where the chapter introduces the concept of epigenetics.
Epigenetics is the study of how our environment can actually control our gene activity.
So it's not just our genes dictating our health and destiny.
Exactly. The environment plays a huge role. And the book points out that less than 5% of diseases are caused by single gene disorders.
So the vast majority are influenced by our lifestyle, stress, environment.
Exactly. And it raises the question, if our internal state is also a form of environment, can we change our gene activity by changing our thoughts and feelings?
That's a powerful idea.
It is. It suggests that we have more control over our health and well-being than we might think.
And it goes on to explain how genes are expressed when our cells make proteins. And those genes contain information that responds to conditions in the external world.
It gives this cool example of camouflage in insects, like their genes have adapted so they can blend in with their surroundings.
So their genes are literally responding to their environment.
Yeah, and that brings us back to epigenetics. It's saying that our genes are not fixed. They're constantly being influenced by our environment, both internal and external.
So we can actually change our gene expression by changing our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
That's what the research is suggesting, yeah. It talks about these experience-dependent genes and behavioral state-dependent genes.
So, like, our experiences and our state of being can literally turn genes on and off.
Exactly. And the book suggests that if we keep reliving old emotional patterns, we might be setting ourselves up for similar health outcomes as those who came before us.
It's like we're inheriting those patterns, not just genetically, but also emotionally and energetically.
That's a good way to put it. And then it gives this hopeful example of a study where diabetics altered 23 gene expressions just by laughing at a comedy show.
Just by laughing.
Yeah, it shows how powerful our emotions can be. And it also mentions the example of hair turning gray overnight from extreme stress.
Oh, wow, I've heard that happening.
It's a dramatic example of how altered body chemistry, driven by emotions, can lead to genetic shifts.
So our minds are really powerful, huh?
More than we realize. And to bring it back to the mind-body connection, the book revisits that finger exercise experiment.
The one where mental rehearsal alone increased finger strength.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we can influence our bodies just by thinking differently. Okay, ready for chapter 4?
Hit me with it.
Chapter 4.
Wow.
Overcoming time. This one is all about being present.
It says all potential exists simultaneously in the quantum field in the present moment.
Right. So if we're not present, we're missing out on all those possibilities.
And it explains how an emotional reaction can linger and solidify into a mood, then a temperament, then a personality trait.
It's like those feelings build upon each other over time.
And it talks about how we can train our bodies to live in a predictable future based on past memories.
So we're basically recreating the past in our future.
And missing out on the present in the process.
Exactly. The book suggests that instead of focusing on a feared future based on the past, we should obsess over a new desired experience.
So instead of worrying about what might go wrong, focus on what you want to happen.
Yeah, and feel it as if it's happening now. Like the author's daughter wanting to go to Italy.
He told her to feel what it would be like to be there, to experience it in her mind and body.
Exactly. And the key takeaway from this chapter is that the biggest obstacle to change is thinking and feeling on the same level as our environment, body, and time.
So we have to think and feel greater than those limitations.
That's the first step. And the book points out that we've all had moments where we've done that, like those flow states.
When you're so absorbed in something that everything else fades away.
Yeah, and those experiences can be peak moments, like spiritual experiences, or more ordinary moments, like getting lost in a creative project.
And after those flow states, there's this feeling of being refreshed, like you've been recharged.
And the book suggests that with practice, we can intentionally access those states more often.
This next part about stress was interesting. It says that thought alone can trigger the stress response.
Unlike animals who mainly react to present dangers, humans can activate the stress response just by thinking about the past or the future.
So we're stressing ourselves out with our own thoughts.
Basically, yeah. And because we're constantly anticipating or recollecting, our bodies are often in this chronic state of stress.
And that chronic stress has consequences, right? It weakens the immune system and makes us more susceptible to illness.
It diverts energy away from our internal systems and towards dealing with perceived threats.
So it's like we're constantly in fight or flight mode, even when there's no real danger present.
And the book ties this into our tendency to live in survival mode. We focus on that tiny percentage of physical reality instead of the vast energy that's all around us.
It says that in survival mode, we identify with being a somebody, defined by our material possessions and circumstances.
And we forget our true nature as consciousness, connected to this vast quantum field.
And those survival emotions like fear, anger, anxiety, they're low frequency, causing us to vibrate at a slower rate.
We feel denser, more corporeal, and the book says there's this fear of letting go of those problems because then we might not know who we are.
It's like we're addicted to those negative emotions.
In a way, yeah. And when those survival emotions dominate, it throws the ego out of balance, leading to selfishness and an obsession with the material world.
We become trapped in a limited reality.
But the book says that freedom starts when we let go of those attachments to people, possessions, places, time.
It's about detaching from the known and craving the unknown.
And it shares Bill's story, the guy who overcame cancer.
Oh, yeah. What was his story again?
He basically went into retreat, observed his thoughts and behaviors, and consciously inhibited those unloving thoughts.
He broke his addiction to bitterness and anger.
Exactly. And that freed up his energy to create a new destiny for himself.
Powerful stuff. Okay, on to chapter 5, survival versus creation.
This chapter starts by emphasizing that where we put our attention, our energy flows. So to change our lives, we have to examine our beliefs.
Because our beliefs shape our reality.
Exactly. And it goes into the creative process, highlighting the role of the frontal lobe.
That part of the brain responsible for higher level thinking.
Yeah. It breaks down creation into 3 steps. First, having a clear intention, a clear thought about what you want.
Like who you want to be, what you want to experience.
Yeah, and that starts to build new neural networks in the brain.
Then the second step is paying attention.
Sustaining that focus on the intention, quieting the mind chatter.
And the third step is making the thought feel real.
That's where the frontal lobe comes in. It becomes highly active, and it actually lowers the activity in other parts of the brain.
So it's like the brain is focusing all its energy on that one thought.
Exactly. It creates a state of no body, no thing, no time. Pure consciousness, beyond the ego.
And in that state, the thought becomes as real as the outer world.
It's captured neurologically as an experience.
Wow. And this creative experience then produces an emotion.
You start to feel as if the event is happening now.
So it's not just a thought anymore. It's a felt experience.
And that starts to rewire the subconscious programs and recondition the body to a new mind.
The book has a cool illustration of this, showing how focused thought quiets the rest of the brain.
Figure 5C, yeah. And in this act of creation, the old chemical signature is no longer being created.
So the survival-based networks are turned off.
And that energy that was bound to the body in survival mode gets freed up.
It moves from those hormonal centers up to the heart.
Leading to feelings of joy and expansion.
It's like a natural high.
It is. The book says that's our natural state of being, the selfless state of creation.
Okay, on to chapter 6. 3 brains.
This chapter revisits Hebb's law, but it also introduces the inverse. Nerve cells that no longer fire together, no longer wire together.
So we can unlearn those old patterns.
Exactly. That's neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself.
It talks about pruning and sprouting.
Pruning those unwanted connections and sprouting new ones.
And it explains how new experiences activate specific neural networks, and the emotional brain releases peptides that reflect the experience.
So emotions are the end product of experiences, chemically recording those events.
And it uses the example of meeting a bear in the woods.
It's like this novel, intense experience that disrupts the normal internal balance.
It makes you more present, more aware.
Yeah, and then it gives a more relatable example, like having dinner with a difficult mother-in-law.
Oh, I can relate to that one.
It talks about how you can consciously choose not to react with those automatic programs.
Like, instead of getting defensive or angry, you access a different part of your brain.
The frontal lobe cools off those old circuits.
And you can choose a different response, like compassion.
And by modifying your behavior, you create a new experience, which releases new chemicals, new emotions.
You're literally changing your brain chemistry.
And by associating those new feelings with the person, you create a new associative memory.
So now compassion is linked to your mother-in-law instead of frustration or resentment.
Exactly. And that moves you out of the habitual self and into a new cycle of thinking and feeling.
It raises the question, can we reproduce those feelings at will?
Like, can we feel compassion even when the external circumstances aren't triggering it?
Exactly. And that's what the book challenges the Newtonian model of cause and effect.
It says, don't wait for the external world to make you feel grateful. Create the feeling of gratitude ahead of time.
Feel it as if the event has already happened.
Embrace the quantum model, choose the reality you want, and give thanks in advance.
Because when you change your internal state, you don't need the external world to give you a reason to feel good.
You become the source of those feelings.
And when your body believes the event is happening now, based on your thoughts and feelings, you're experiencing the future now.
You're connected to all possibilities.
Okay, chapter 7, the gap. This one got really personal.
Yeah, the author starts by sharing his own experience of realizing his happiness was externally dependent.
He was always traveling, lecturing, getting validation from outside sources.
But when he was at home, he felt empty.
There was a gap between his outward success and his inner state.
And he says that's what happens when we memorize addictive emotional states.
We create this gap between who we appear to be and who we really are.
And the bigger the gap, the stronger the addiction.
It's like we're trying to fill that gap with external things.
Like, we need to recreate experiences that trigger those familiar emotions just to feel whole.
And the book gives examples of those buried feelings we try to hide.
Shame, anger, fear, inadequacy, all the stuff we don't want to show the world.
but we end up building our lives around avoiding those feelings.
And by midlife, we've developed strategies to keep them suppressed.
But the emptiness often persists because those external fixes don't work anymore.
The book has a good illustration of this. It shows how shared experiences create shared emotions and an energetic bonding between people.
So if someone breaks free from that shared emotional pattern, it can disrupt the group dynamic.
It's like they're no longer playing the same game.
And the book says that breaking those emotional bonds takes energy, like separating atoms.
And when we try to change those internal feelings through external means and it fails, we might turn to addictions.
Drugs, alcohol, shopping, anything to numb those unwanted feelings.
But the underlying thought is always that something outside of us will fix how we feel inside.
It's running from pain, chasing pleasure.
And the pleasure centers recalibrate, so we need more and more stimulation.
We become desensitized to joy.
Exactly. And the book says true happiness isn't about pleasure.
It's about something deeper, something more sustainable.
And it clarifies that while addictions are harmful, the real focus here is on breaking the habit of being ourselves, whatever that looks like for each person.
So it's not just about quitting substances, it's about changing our underlying patterns.
And it acknowledges that hiding our fears and insecurities is a way to maintain social bonds.
But breaking free requires confronting those parts of ourselves.
It's about being authentic.
And the book says change can happen in states of pain or joy.
We don't have to wait for a crisis.
And it introduces self-awareness or self-observation as a key to recognizing those negative emotions.
Through meditation, we can become conscious of the unconscious.
It's like shining a light on those hidden patterns.
And by becoming aware of them, we can start to unmemorize them.
We surrender those emotions to a greater mind.
And that closes the gap. It frees up all that energy we were using to maintain those patterns.
And then we can use that energy to create something new.
The book shares Pamela's story, the woman who was struggling financially.
Oh yeah, she was feeling like a victim.
And through meditation, she recognized and released those negative emotions.
Yeah.
Impatience, blaming, lack.
She closed the gap.
And then she started receiving unexpected checks, including back child support. Almost $22,000.
That's incredible.
It shows how releasing those negative emotions can literally change our reality.
It's like those emotions were blocking the flow of abundance.
Exactly. And the book says that as we remove those blocks, we become more like that universal intelligence, more loving, giving, conscious.
We close the gap between who we are and who we're meant to be.
And that's when we experience true happiness, that wholeness that's not dependent on the external world.
Those elevated emotions become unconditional. They come from within.
And that's when manifestation happens naturally.
When we're not coming from a place of lack, but from a place of wholeness.
The book even shares the author's own experience of realizing his disconnect from his true self.
He had this moment of realization and surrender to a greater mind.
And he experienced this profound shift in his awareness.
So it's about committing to that change, becoming aware of the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that aren't serving us.
And shifting to a new level of consciousness. Okay, on to chapter 8, meditation.
This chapter dives into meditation as a practical tool for change.
It says meditation is a way to change your mind, and changing your mind is how you change your life.
Makes sense.
It gives two definitions of meditation. The first one, from Tibetan Buddhism, says it's about becoming familiar with your inner states.
So like becoming more aware of what's going on inside?
Yeah, through focused attention. And the second definition, from Sanskrit, describes meditation as to cultivate self.
It uses the analogy of gardening.
Preparing the soil of the mind, removing the weeds, planting new seeds.
So it's an intentional process?
Exactly. You're taking control and cultivating a new reality.
And the chapter gets into brainwave frequencies.
It talks about how different states of consciousness are associated with different brainwave patterns. Beta, alpha, theta, delta.
Okay, can you break those down for us?
Sure. Beta is our waking state, active thinking, analyzing, processing. Alpha is more relaxed, calm, focused. Theta is deep relaxation, meditation, creativity. Delta is deep sleep.
So most adults are in beta most of the time.
Yeah, especially in our busy modern world.
Yeah.
And the book says that too much beta can be detrimental.
It leads to stress, anxiety, that fight or flight response.
And it can hinder learning and make it hard to solve problems.
Because we're stuck in that reactive state.